I want to read to you from the Good Book. Usually, it's the sort of thing we do in church, read from the Good Book. A slight difference today. This book is the Mr. Good Book from the Mr. Ben. I'm going to start reading it, and there is a reason for me reading it. It's also an amazing book. £2.50 in WH Smith, you should buy it. Mr. Good is very good. He always makes his bed, he always cleans his teeth, and he always wipes his feet. He never slams doors, he never forgets birthdays, and he never ever tells lies. Mr. Good is very good. However, Mr. Good lives in a place called Badland, a place where nobody is like Mr. Good, a place where people do slam doors, and they slam them in your face. In Badland, the puddles are much deeper than they look. In Badland, a dog's bite is worse than its bark. In Badland, even the trees are bad. One day it was wet and windy. Well, of course it was. Weather is always bad in Badland. Mr. Good was walking along, minding his own business, when the hat of the man in front blew off. Mr. Good leapt in the air and caught it from him. The man turned round and glared at Mr. Good. "What do you think you're doing?" he thundered. "Give my hat back." Poor Mr. Good, this sort of thing was always happening to him. You see, the very idea of doing a good deed in Badland was preposterous, unthinkable, or mad. If Mr. Good offered to help carry shopping, he was accused of stealing. If he kindly held a door open for someone, then he would be kicked in the shin. Not surprisingly, Mr. Good was not very happy. In fact, he was miserable. So he decided to go for a long walk to think about things. He walked for a very long time, and he was so deep in thought he did not notice how far he had gone. And he was so deep in thought that he accidentally walked slap bang into someone. "Oh dear, I'm sorry," stammered Mr. Good nervously. "That's quite all right," said the man, and carried on his way. "Quite all right," repeated Mr. Good to himself. "That's quite all right." In the whole of his life no one had ever said "that's quite all right" to Mr. Good. Then Mr. Good noticed the sun was shining, which was strange because the sun never shone in Badland. Further on, Mr. Good found a dustbin on its side. Without thinking, he tidied up all the rubbish. "Thank you," said a woman. Mr. Good stared at her. In the whole of his life no one had ever said thank you to him. "Could you tell me where I am?" he asked. "You're in Good Land," replied the woman. "Thank you," said Mr. Good. "My pleasure," said the woman. Mr. Good beamed. And I'm sure you've guessed that Mr. Good now lives in Good Land, and Mr. Good is happy, very, very happy, doing good deeds all day long. The only thing Mr. Good still doesn't trust are puddles. Once you slept in a Badland puddle, you'll never forget. So, Mr. Good was in a bad place called Badland, and Badland's very bad, but he was still good in that place. I think we can do that too. We can be in a bad place, somewhere where there isn't much of God's love, where there's lots of horrible people, lots of people treating others badly. And what we can do is be like Mr. Good in those places, and we can, be really nice and open doors and things. Even if people do the same as they did in this story, then we can still continue to do it. And and sometimes we had to accept being kicked in the shins or having doors slammed in our faces. But actually, it's really cool if we can do all those things. And in the story, Mr. Good moved from Badland to Goodland. But I think it'd be amazing if we could change our Badlands into Goodlands. So I challenge you to be like Mr. Good, to be nice to people, even if they're horrible to you. Be nice to them. And Badland, which is like a really dark and rainy place, like it is now, really, but in Weymouth, but no, because of the actual weather, not a bad place. It's nice. But yeah, so it's always bad and rainy in Badland. But then he went to Goodland and the sun was there. And what I want is for the places that we are, that are like Badland, to turn to Goodland, so the sun will be shining in them because we're there, and we can be like the sun in those places. and the whole atmosphere of a place can change because we're there and changing it. So it'd be really cool. Change your bad land to a good land. Thanks.